Going back to the late 1980s and during the 1990s, I wrote a column for a publication called Southern Livestock Standard. It was a weekly publication, it was a weekly column, and my column was called A View from the Pear Flat. Now, they let me write about just about anything I wanted to, from hunting, fishing, outdoors, wildlife management. As long as it had something to do with the outdoors, they were okay with it, and they allowed me to do several character developments, if you will. We'll get into those sometime, maybe a little bit farther down the line, but this one I just happened to pick up while I was looking through a bunch of storage stuff today, and it goes, a few miles south of the Pear Flat is a ranch leased by several friends of mine who are known to play practical jokes. Like the time they took a hunter, a guest from the north, and put him in a blind. He looked out the window and saw Tarzan riding an elephant across the countryside. Tarzan stopped just long enough by the hunter to ask the hunter if he had seen Jane and perhaps which way she had gone. On another occasion, they rigged a large ceramic deer with charges, and as soon as the unsuspecting hunter shot the deer, it literally exploded all over the place. Other practical jokes revolved around full-bodied mounts of big white-tailed deer, complete with movable heads. After firing several shots into the mount by remote control, the head was made to spin around in rapid succession. It got to the point where a visiting hunter was almost scared to shoot at anything because he would fall for a practical joke that they were pulling on him. A few years ago, they took a client who was the only one in the vehicle with a rifle. In transit to the blind where they hoped to hunt that afternoon, the driver spotted a huge deer standing perfectly still in a pear flat. He slammed on the brakes and started hollering for the hunter to shoot. The hunter in turn made no response at all. He just started shaking his head and said, "I've heard all about your stuff, deer. If you think I'm going to fall for that trick, you're crazy." The other two in the vehicle started pleading for the visiting hunter to shoot. He refused to even stir. Then the driver and his companion started to try to take the rifle away from the hunter, knowing this was a real buck and likely the best ever seen on the ranch. The hunter, still thinking it was a practical joke, even held on tighter, still thinking they were simply carrying things a bit farther to get him to shoot at the mounted deer. The deer, possibly amused by all the goings-on, finally grew tired of watching, turned, jumped into the brush. At that point, the hunter simply turned to the disgusted two in the truck with him and said, "Now, how in the world did you get that mounted deer to jump? You really thought I was going to fall for your little trick, didn't you? Well, I fooled you." Remember, hunting seasons are supposed to be really fun. I'm going to come back to this here in a second because there's a couple of more things here as well, too. You know, some years ago, we had a big craze in Texas where you could find these huge stuffed styrofoam armadillos when they were trying to make the armadillo the state animal of Texas years ago. Well, this is other part of this column goes, some of the styrofoam armadillos showed up on the lease as well. Some even showed up on the road. Some even showed up on the end of strings being pulled through the brush. For several years, a friend of mine had been telling me he correlated armadillo movement with deer movement. And in fact, he was right. But one day, while all of us were in camp, we happened to look out the back window, which overlooked a pear flat next to a creek bottom. There in the opening was an even dozen of giant armadillos, peacefully feeding on whatever it is giant armadillos made of styrofoam feed on. Just then we thought we'd been had. And boy, guess what? Out walked a huge 10-point buck right into the middle of those giant armadillos. He simply approached each and smelled of them, then shook his head as if to indicate that he didn't like their odor. Behind us in the next room, we could hear snickering. That was until they saw the big buck smelling the giant armadillos. That afternoon, each of the practical jokers took a giant armadillo to their hunting blind. That is fun, folks, and hunting is supposed to be fun. Don't ever forget that. Make great memories and tell them around the campfire. You know, occasionally even write them up if you want to. Thank you for joining me here at LW's White Tales. I look for y'all to be here again very shortly when we come up with another more than hopefully interesting and humorous story.